You don't have to sell Cork to me, boy. I think it's one of the most important places in the world.
I have a feeling that at one time, Cork was a real European capital. It's ceased to be that, and the problem now is how it's going to recreate a life for itself. A life in which a man can live completely from the cradle to the grave.
I want Cork to be a beacon, not just for Ireland, but for what a small European city can be. It lives with its ambition suppressed, its true potential never quite realised by those tasked with shaping it. When its parks get railed and gravelled, it feels like a betrayal of its own character. What we really need is some kind of intervention. We have to be the negotiators for Cork because the city cannot speak for itself. It's up to us to confront the people making the decisions in its name. Right, well, let's just get stuck in then, shall we? The park really serves as a symbol of the disconnection between the city management and its people. And the striking thing now isn't the design itself, it's the psychology of how it was handled. The whole affair is summed up nicely in this clip from The Simpsons.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
So it's us, right? It's our fault. It's the people of Cork who are wrong. We're mistaken about what we want. It's a brave position for a city authority to take, especially in a place where proper public green space has always been scarce. And it's not disappointing because of what's there, but because of what's not. A real missed opportunity. It was on the front page of The Echo that Cork City's chief executive Valerie O'Sullivan said she was proud of the park. How can city officials be so immune to feedback? They didn't even flinch. This is how it's supposed to look, less green, more brutalist. She's proud of the park, a true believer, capped off with a claim that only a minority of people don't like it.
The CEO isn't meant to win arguments with the public. They're meant to serve them, or at the very least, stay in dialogue with them. A statement along the lines of, "We've heard your feedback and we'll review the elements of it," would have been enough. Even if nothing changed, it would have at least preserved the illusion that feedback matters. Instead, we get the final word, case closed, full stop.
Citizens of Cork have no say in who runs the city. It's only regrettable we didn't vote for a directly elected mayor when we had the chance. The Local Government Reform Act in 2014 actually strengthened the authority of the chief executive as the primary decision maker, and at the same time, it reduced the influence of councillors over planning, development, staffing and spending. Put simply, the mechanics of the city are out of reach of the public. Across Ireland, there's a strategy to increase the nighttime economy, and as such, Cork City has a salaried nighttime economy advisor tasked explicitly with managing the pilot over 2 years. Due to the absence of any sustained nighttime initiatives, I reached out to ask how it was going. In response, I was pointed to the national strategy. The document acknowledges the problems around transport, safety, noise policy, late opening, licensing and toilets, but it frames them as things to be examined rather than delivered. It's just more process, not progress. I imagine that the pilot in Dublin is rather the same then. What's this? An interactive map with over 100 things to do after dark? No! By the end of 2025, Dublin had almost 200 nighttime cultural events in the space of 18 months. And Cork had 2 pilot events, a safety scheme and a mascot to help children navigate the city after dark. The same country, the same strategy, cities apart. But it's not the nighttime economy advisor's fault. Cork can't have a late night cultural scene because it barely has a daytime one to begin with. The strategy talks about expanding cultural programming, venues opening later, but that assumes there's a baseline of institutions with the capacity, funding and ambition to do that. But there isn't. The Crawford Gallery has been closed coming up on 2 years and building hasn't even commenced.
It's hard to talk about culture after dark when Cork's cultural spine has been physically removed from the city. There was no interim plan, no pop-up exhibition spaces, no use of vacant spaces, no temporary galleries. And it's not like we were looking for museum-grade climate control or 19th century paintings on loan from Europe. A big empty unit, concrete floors, white walls, just a space for continuity. Local artists, student shows, video installations, performances, somewhere and something that says this city still cares about art.
The city does have the Cork Public Museum in Fitzgerald's Park and the Glucksman Gallery in UCC. Both do important work, but they are peripheral in every sense. Neither fill the role of a central, publicly visible, late-opening cultural institution that people would naturally flow through in the evening. It's understandable that Dublin would have more cultural institutions than Cork, but really, it looks like it has all of them. You could spend days wandering around the many amazing institutions Dublin has. For a city of its size, it's punching far above its weight. Cork doesn't have a nighttime economy problem, it has an institutional absence problem. The city was promised funding for a world-class library and cultural space to be put in the counting house. Libraries, when done well, are among the most cultural pieces of infrastructure a city can build. That never materialised. It's the same with the event centre. They promised a proper, modern, large-scale indoor venue, a space to feed the city economy year-round. That dissolved into process. And that's the pattern. Nothing ever officially fails, projects just don't get delivered. That being said, during the same period, Dublin managed to expand, refurbish or outright deliver multiple large venues. Cork is expected to coast along on words. Meanwhile, the owners of the Marina Market have partnered with promoter AEG and London-based Niall McLaughlin Architects to deliver their own 6,000-seater event centre in the Docklands, where it should have been all along. Every cloud has a silver lining though. Perhaps the site at South Main Street could deliver the city centre its first ever substantial park. It's clear what the people want, but can the council tap into that? Do they need some kind of device that they connect directly into their heads to help them realise the will of the people? In the original Urban Fabric video, I proposed that the old tax office be turned into a park because BAM's planning permission had lapsed. They now want to turn it into student accommodation. This is a prime site with river frontage, and at least as a hotel, it would have been an amenity that everyone could enjoy. If this proceeds, not as a park, not as a hotel, but as student accommodation, it is the epitome of the council having no direct say in the direction of the city. Developers can come in and put whatever they want, wherever they want, and the city is powerless to control it. The government spends over €10 billion a year on NGOs that deliver little more than policies and documents. That's a lot of money for PDFs. Of the 34,000 NGOs, some of them are legitimate. A small fraction are charities and GAAs. Cork City's budget for 2026 is €362 million, or just around 3.6% of what the state spends on NGOs nationally. Of that, the city spends over a third on staff and pensions. Councillors' salaries are around €28,000, or more like 30,000 if you include their expenses. Their pay is just 0.3% of the city's budget, or roughly 1/100% of national NGO spending annually. And let's just think about that ratio, because it tells us where power actually sits. Many councillors work a second job, so much of their 28,000 is taxed at 40%. The role is structurally sabotaged, so poorly paid that the policymakers for the city are part-time. Cork City Council is top-heavy with administration. Too many people behind desks, not enough people out fixing things, painting things and maintaining the city. The council doesn't even own basic facade maintenance equipment. No cherry pickers, no scaffolding, those have to be rented every time. What a great use of money. The The same goes for crowd control fencing that we see at festivals. They spend tens of thousands of euro renting that fencing every year instead of just owning it. Maybe I should go to them for financial advice. It's an organisation without tools, infrastructure or capacity, a system built around press releases and outsourcing. If over 100 million euro goes on staff every year and the city still looks scruffy and under-maintained, it's not irrational to be asking questions about their output. The city does have access to other funds for capital projects, urban renewals, greenways, parks. All of these come from separate pots of money from Dublin, which the city can apply for. How it's structured, though, leads to huge efficiency problems. Because the money is coded for that specific purpose, it cannot be used for anything else. So if Cork builds something cheaply and efficiently, it is not allowed to reinvest the money it saved where it would be needed. Any underspend is returned to Dublin, so it creates a use it or lose it philosophy. There's no incentive to deliver cost-effective projects in order to reinvest savings. It's the same with services. Cork isn't in control of its own bus service. Councillors have to contact the NTA in Dublin. Have you got problems with your pipes or water supply? That's managed from Dublin too. Policing? Yes, you guessed it. The city doesn't have the most basic agency. It isn't allowed to keep tax it raises locally either, sending €6.8 million back to central government in 2025 under the National Equalisation Scheme. And yet, we don't have money for a public toilet? Really? Are you sure? The time is now. The responsibility is ours. The possibilities are limitless. Ode Council. The first half of it reads like an ad for a perfume, but it's actually just rhetoric from the chief executive. The responsibility is not ours, it sits in Dublin, and if the possibilities are limitless, how about those public toilets? What Cork actually needs in terms of leadership is a genuine push for radical change in how cities are governed and funded. The Cork City bureaucracy and the Cork City councillors need to come together and make a meaningful push for essentially independence, or at least autonomy. The current governance model works in places like Urlingford. 2 streets, limited complexity. Only so much can go wrong there. Scale the same structure up to a city of 220,000 people with layered housing, transport, cultural and social needs, and it's just absurd. It's all encapsulated by the absence of a dog park in the city centre. They exist almost everywhere, except in Cork, because the funding isn't available. But a dog park isn't a major capital project. It's some fencing and a gate. Even the most simple things cannot be done unless money is unlocked from Dublin. The hysterical cost is almost besides the point. It makes it appear that the council doesn't have any discretionary capacity at any level. No petty cash for something that's obviously useful, easy, and that people want. In the end, they did put a dog park in Ballincollig, which is operating on a trial basis, because in a world full of dog parks, Cork City Council needed to trial one. If the cost of a modest dog park is framed as a funding issue while individual senior salaries comfortably exceed what's unavailable, it shows the city can sustain its own hierarchy, management layers, reports and process, but it can't put a fence with a gate that people would use. I submitted a Freedom of Information request to ask what the objectives of the pilots could possibly be. I mean, what are the dogs saying on their exit surveys? The city recently announced a painting scheme for St. Patrick Street, but exercise caution here, friends, because the same scheme just concluded on North Main Street, where the buildings still look a little dishevelled. A lot dishevelled, actually. By my count, they painted about 5 buildings on the street. And that's because there isn't a plan to work with building owners because they don't know who the building owners are. In fact, the press release was the plan. Now, we can see the brickwork hiding beneath the paint. They were rendered to seal them, but today we have breathable sealers, water repellent treatments and nano coatings, allowing buildings to be exposed. North Main Street is a gem, the historical spine of the city. It just needs our help to peel back decades of poverty and unveil the beautiful fabric of these buildings. Because Cork has so many beautiful buildings, but a lot of them are masked. The urban fabric should be sympathetic to Cork's heritage, and we'd be all the better for it. We only have to go back to 2006 to see a more vibrant St. Patrick's Street. And look at the difference the colour makes compared to the monotone buildings we find today. Wouldn't it be wonderful if it got back some of its Regency charm? But if the council's effort is just a press release in the hope building owners will get in touch, then I wouldn't hold my breath. Press releases are easy. It's follow-through that counts. There's a general perception in City Hall that they are underappreciated. I know, just roll with it. They can't do the bare minimum of maintaining things. They don't own the equipment, they don't know who own the buildings, they can't manage a public toilet, and the urban fabric is a littered mess. But sure, I hear them. They're not in it for the accolades. They get stung time and time again for gross wastage of money. They can't deliver the most basic civic amenities. But don't worry, the accolades don't come anyway. One of the most cherished parts of city governance is that things can only exist on paper. To that end, since 2021, the city has a salaried tree officer who is very good at producing policy. Published in 2024, the city's tree strategy says all the right things. It has it all, on paper. Just this week, as part of a housing development on the Kinsale Road, dozens of trees were felled, despite the planning application specifically saying they were to be retained. Who's getting fined for that? No one. The same week, 65-year-old trees in Farranree are being felled for a cycle lane, an area explicitly identified in the tree strategy as having one of the lowest tree covers in the entire city. Now, if there was no tree strategy, you could call it ignorance, but there is. So what's the point in City Hall paying to develop a tree strategy if they're just going to do whatever they want anyway? It's actually worse than ignorance. It's utterly indifferent to neighbourhoods and the wishes of the people who live in them. It is possible to have both cycle lanes and mature trees. Somebody just needed to give that plan a second pass and do something a bit better. What did the tree officer have to say? Who knows? There's a proposal to set up a task force for Cork, but there's concern that it will be little more than a SWAT team from Dublin, an additional layer of bureaucracy out of public reach. And that's where properly funded councillors come in. Imagine if just one out of the €7 million spent on Bishop Lucey Park was put towards their salaries. Then at the very least, we'd have full-time councillors. And we need professional councillors. They are our task force. They've been collecting feedback from the public and engaging in consultation for years. They are the local experts. They're already here. They have the plan. What they need is the autonomy, funding, and full-time salary that represents the job they're supposed to be doing. The city needs competent leadership, willing to confront the structural constraints that keeps it hemmed in, underpowered, and unable to shape its own future. Underneath the housing problems and the rental crisis lies a city management oddly indifferent to the people living here.
It can be quite dizzying how bad the city management is, but the real problem is the disconnect in how they perceive themselves versus how they actually are. Psychologically, it's very hard to convince someone to do better if they already think they're great.
The people who leave here often do so feeling that their voice doesn't matter. We know what well-run cities look like, so have the conversation with your family and with your friends about the systems that are holding Cork back. Through awareness and a push for local democracy, we can regain some control and give Cork the happy ending it deserves.